Am I the a-hole for postponing my vacation with my GF because of my ex? My ex-wife and I divorced 6 years ago. We married really young. She is very religious and there was pressure from her family to marry. I was young and dumb and had just left the military with no sense of direction. We were very different people, but it didn't come out as we only dated for 8 months before marrying. It felt very romantic to marry after such a short time, but after we went and moved in together it was clear we weren't a good match. We stuck it out for 8 years but it wasn't working and we were both older, so the whole thing with living miserably to make other people happy, her and my parents, didn't appeal anymore. I don't blame her for any of it. I think we just didn't understand what we wanted at the time and did things to please other people. We had an amicable divorce and our son lived with her until high school. He is with me for high school because we live near a top school and she lives in a small town without a good high school. He is supposed to stay summers and holidays with her and come here during the school year. My ex-wife got diagnosed with cervical cancer last month and it was caught late, so it's already spread. The long-term survival rates isn't great and I want my son to visit his mother in a week or two before she goes through her hysterectomy. My vacation renews every June 30th. I had saved 2 weeks to go to Hawaii this winter break. However, with this situation I want to take a week or two to go with my son to be there for him. His mom won't be able to cook and clean for him and he also wants for me to drive them up to the next city to visit his grandparents. The other issue is my son might have to stay with us for this winter break. He is supposed to go to his mom's but it's unlikely now depending on her treatment schedule, and I don't want to go on vacation with him home alone with this happening. My GF is not happy because we have winter break set up to go to Hawaii and our flights have been booked. I called the airline and they said they would switch our flights to a later one for $600, which I offered to cover so we could rebook the vacation for next fall instead. But she thinks my son should be able to go back alone and thinks I'm wasting my vacation going with him when we already have plans. My son does go on flights by himself. He is almost 16, however this time my ex isn't going to be physically able to take care of our son. There are also a lot of things to be done in prep for my son and my ex before she goes through chemo and surgery. My GF is upset I'm prioritizing my ex over her, but I see it as going because my son might lose his mom. Am I the a-hole for taking my daughter on a backstage visit that excluded her friends? I'm 34F, a retired trapeze artist, and my daughter, 6F, is enrolled in circus school. She loves it so much that she asked to see a Cirque du Soleil show as a birthday present. My husband, 37M, and I managed to get discount tickets to take her and 3 of her friends from circus school on a 2-hour drive to catch the nearest show. When I got there I checked the company credits and noticed a friend of mine, an acrobat from Belgium, was one of the performers. I hadn't seen him in years and sent him a message on Instagram just to say I was in the audience with my daughter and excited to see him. He replied almost immediately and told me to look for a stage manager after the show so we could say hi and I could take my daughter backstage. And so I did. Since he only invited my daughter and I didn't mention in my short message there were 3 other girls plus my husband, and I couldn't impose taking a small party backstage. My husband waited with the girls for about 20 minutes after the show was over while we toured backstage. My daughter was so happy. Yet she kept talking about it on the way home, and that's when I realized the other girls could be feeling left out. What do you know? The same night one of the girls' mother called me to say her daughter came home crying because she didn't get to go backstage and that it was very poor form on my part to invite them to a party and to exclude them from one of the experiences. I tried to explain how things played out, but she kept being aggressive, until I finally lost it and told her she had no right to call me and try to reprimand me and should instead have a talk to her daughter about how to deal with such frustrations. My husband says I should not have instigated and that, in hindsight, I shouldn't have split the party. Will I be the a-hole if I refuse to pay for my daughter's college for making fun of my stepson's injury and condition? I, 44M, am a widow of a previous marriage and so is my wife, 42F. She has a son, 19M, from her previous marriage and I have a daughter, 17F, as well. We dated for roughly 5 years before being married for 3 years now and our kids have known each other since the beginning. No major fights or weirdness besides getting to know someone else as a parent/guardian. My son was a tremendous athlete in basketball and I used to play in college at a school I'm sure none of you heard of. Regardless, I know the ins and outs of basketball and when he asked me to coach him, I was more than happy to. Turns out that he was good, really good. Division I good. My wife is a controller and I'm a pharmacist. Together, we make a very, very comfortable living, but are not rich. So when my son was getting scholarship offers for basketball, I realized we could pay for my daughter's college in full and neither of them would have any student loan debt when they graduate. A plan that I shared with my daughter, which I think was a mistake to begin with. These plans changed when my son tried riding on someone else's motorcycle, with their permission, but with zero training, and got badly injured on an ensuing crash. He lost part of his hand and foot, not life-threatening, but basketball ending. This happened last year and my son has been in a deep depression that we're desperately trying to bring him out of, but he feels like his entire identity got ripped away in the blink of an eye. He's been in counseling and prescribed medication, but it has not helped thus far. Recently he confided in me that the pills he's on have unfortunate side effects with his libido to virtually zero interest and wants to stop them. I told him the important thing is that he's with us, but he can bring that up with his doctor next visit. Fast forward about 2 weeks. I'm upstairs looking for something in my room and I heard my daughter talking to her friends on her phone about college. The conversation turned towards her brother and she said she can't wait to be gone. I'm tired hearing her brother cry every day and saying his hand is gross. I knew spirits in the house has shifted since he became injured, but I didn't think she felt this type of way. I was gonna talk to her later about this, but then I heard him say that he can't even get it up while laughing. At that, I was furious. I stormed in her room, took her phone, laptop, car keys and TV out of her room. I told her she should be ashamed of how she's talking about her brother and he might do something permanent if he heard you talking about him like that. When my wife got home, we talked about what happened and while she's proud of the way I stood up for my son, she thinks it's too far to also not pay for her college, since we could easily do so. Am I the a-hole for forcing my kid to get a job even though it hurts her social life at school? So my daughter, Sophia, is 16 and she goes to a private school that a lot of the richer families send their kids. My wife works there so we get a huge discount on the price. I would prefer to send the kids to public school but our school district sucks a lot, so private it is. I truly don't like how the kids act at that school. The best way is that they are snobby. My breaking point for this was my son sent a video of my daughter being extremely rude to a fast food worker. My wife and I discussed it and we agreed she needed to get a job so she will understand that those people deserve respect and how awful it feels for a customer to be a jerk. So she has been working at Target and dealing with all the customers. She hates it and it got out in school she has a job. This resulted in people not inviting her out like they used to since she is lame for having a job. My wife wants to let her quit her job and we got in an argument about it. I think it's better she learns they were never her friends in the first place and she should keep her job. My wife thinks I am unfair, a jerk, and Sophia hates me at the moment. Am I the a-hole for telling my friend with kids that I'm glad the village doesn't exist anymore? I have a friend Bella who is late 20s and has a toddler and a baby. She constantly bemoans the fact that the village doesn't exist anymore and people aren't helping her and her partner with their baby the way they used to in past generations and how selfish it is and how terrible this is society now. She's really bitter her mother won't retire and babysit the kids for free, but her mother is only in her mid-50s and can't afford to retire yet. She constantly complains she can't travel or enjoy her life anymore because she doesn't have a village. After years of this, I told her I'm actually really glad we have moved away from that because the village that parents romanticize was actually the unpaid labor of women, and as a woman who doesn't want a child, I'm glad that I'm no longer considered socially obligated to babysit other people's kids for free or do household chores for people who chose to have kids in my free time, especially because these people won't pay it forward to me in any way, and if something happened to me, like getting really sick and needing help, they'd use their kids as a reason they can help me. I also reminded her that the village depended on women not having jobs and it is a good thing that women can now sustain themselves and aren't forced into dependency on their fathers or husbands. The thing that triggered it was that I went overseas recently for a holiday and to attend a concert of an artist I really like and she complained about how she doesn't get to these things because the village is off doing things like that. She said I'm just a really selfish child-free person who wants mothers to suffer, but I don't think I was wrong, and then she said I was a bad feminist and a terrible person and hasn't spoken to me since.